Hey guys, how's it going? It's Calvin Raab. Now this is a video that I've looked forward to making for a long time, and that's because in this video I'm going to be going over the BRRRR investing model. And I think that this is not only one of the best ways to invest in real estate, but also one of the best ways to grow your wealth in general. And by the end of this video, you'll have a good understanding of exactly how BRRRR works. So this is how the video is kind of going to go. I'm going to start off by first explaining the whole process in general. I'm going to go over it fairly quickly, but just walk you through it, kind of a SparkNotes version of it. Then after that, I'm going to go into a little more detail on each part of BRRRR, and I'm going to give a few little pointers and exactly what that step means and kind of what it entails. And then after that, I'm going to conclude with an example. I'm going to come up with a hypothetical situation, a hypothetical property, and we're going to walk through how you could BRRRR that particular investment. And then hopefully by the end, you'll have a good understanding of how BRRRR works through not only the example, but each step. So this is going to be a lot of fun to make, a lot of fun to film, and I'm very passionate about BRRRR investing in general. So let's get into it. This is going to be a lot of fun. And if you're new here, my name is Calvin Raab. I make videos all about personal finance. So if you're interested in anything like that, I would love it if you would subscribe. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to start by explaining the process very generally and pretty quickly. And don't worry if something doesn't make sense. You don't know how we go in from one step to another. And that's okay, because in the next part after this, I'm going to go into a little more detail on each step and just go a little more in-depth on it. So hopefully that will clear up any misunderstandings you get here. This part of the video is just to get a big picture idea of exactly how BRRRR works before we go into a lot of detail. Alright, so let's get started. BRRRR is a 5-letter acronym for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And this is kind of how it's done. So buy, first you're going to buy a property. Then you're going to rehab it and fix it all up and up its value to its ARV, the after repair value. Then you are gonna, another R, you're gonna rent it out. And you're gonna rent it to any tenant, maybe you have a property manager, maybe you are self-managing, but you're gonna rent it out. Then you are going to go and refinance it. That rehab would have pushed its value up, so now you can refinance it into a longer term loan, hopefully at a fairly low interest rate. You can pull that money back out and hopefully pay yourself for any cost of purchase of the property along with any rehab costs. And in an ideal world, it covers all those expenses. And now because you just refinanced it, got your money back, you can do the last R, which is repeat. And you can go and do that whole process again because you now have your money again. You are in the same stage that you were at the very beginning. And that's the cool thing about BRRRR, is it allows you to do it over and over and over again because you end with your money back. So that's why the process is kind of so powerful. Okay, so that's a fairly quick explanation of how it works. And don't worry, as I said, if something didn't make sense there. But now I want to go into a little more depth on each of the 5 steps and give a little more pointers and a little more insight on each one so you have a better idea of exactly how this BRRRR process works. So let's start off with buy. Alright, so what kind of property will you be buying? Because you can't pick up any property and BRRRR it. A BRRRR investment property has to have specific qualities and different characteristics to it. So a BRRRR property has to be well below market value. And generally the way you get that is by finding a property that is in distress and needs lots of rehab. So it's hard to find specific numbers here, but generally what I run by, what I like to see, is I like to find a property that at 70% of its ARV, I'm all in. So let me explain there. That was kind of a few tricky little lingo there. So ARV is its after repair value. So you're going to want to know after you repair it, what is the cost of the property. So suppose you know that properties in this area are selling for $100,000. So you're thinking, all right, the ARV of this property will be $100,000. 70% of that I want to be all in for. So I want to buy the property and rehab it for under $70,000. Now, $70,000 is what I like to see. Different people run on different percentages there. Some people like 80%, some people like even lower, around 60, 65%. It's really personal preference when it comes to that. But you want it to be well under the after repair value. And when we get to the refinance, we'll explain why that is so important. So that's kind of the property you're looking for. You're looking for one that is at a steep discount due to it needing lots of rehab. All right, so now we move on to the first R, which is rehab. And I touched on it a little bit when I was explaining buy, but now is when you're gonna go in and rehab that property. So you're gonna have a contractor lined up, you're probably gonna wanna get multiple bids at first to see which one is gonna either be the cheapest or do the best work, and you're gonna rehab it to maximize and get it up to the ARV that you believe it should be at. And I recommend talking to real estate agents in the area to figure out, what is selling around there, what characteristics do houses have that people in that area seem to be really liking and pushes up that ARV and the value of the home. You don't want to put in a pool if people in the neighborhood aren't buying houses with pools. You can look at what your quote unquote competitors are. What are the floor plans looking like? What do other houses have as far as amenities? And just so you can make yourself competitive in that market. But now it is all about fixing up that house and getting it ready to rent. So I just said it there, but now we rent the property. So if you're self-managing, this is when you would get the lease in order, when you would post that this place is open for rent. Maybe you just want to do it on Craigslist, or a whole bunch of different websites are open to you. You can even talk to real estate agents and different things like that, but getting the word out. Or maybe you have a property manager. This is when they would take the wheel a little bit more and handle this whole renting out of your specific property. But this whole step is all about renting out that property. Okay, so now that you've got it rented, it's time to move on to the third R. And this R is kind of what makes the whole magic of BRRRR investing work. And that is the refinance, because this is when you get your money back. If people talk about BRRRR and you get all your money back, this is where that happens. And if this seems kind of weird at first, don't worry, it was for me. Refinances took me a little while to completely understand at first, but in the end, they're not too hard, and I think I want to make a whole nother video on it. So don't worry too much if this doesn't make that much sense, but I'm going to try to explain it as best I can. So what a refinance does is it allows you to take equity out of a specific property. So you have this property, you've now bought it, and you've fixed it up, and it now has an ARV. It's after repair value. This is the value of the property. And you now have a whole bunch of equity sitting in there because you likely didn't take out a loan, and all that money is sitting in that property and you want to take it out. And you do that through a refinance. So you're going to go to really any bank or just anyone that you want to take this mortgage out on your property for, and you're going to say, all right, so this is how much my property is worth. You're going to have to get it appraised and everything. I would like to take a loan out for it. And they'll tell you, all right, so this is your LTV. Loan to value, meaning it's a percentage, 60, 70, 80, 90, and it allows you to take that percentage out of your property and turn it into a mortgage or a loan. So if you had $1 million property and their ARV was 80%, that means you can take out a loan for 80% of that. And 80% of $1 million is $800,000. So you could take out $800,000 loan on the property, you would get $800,000 cash, and that would be your new mortgage. It's the same as had you done 20% down, $200,000 down, it's the same exact loan. And now that you have that cash, you pulled it back out, you've essentially paid yourself back because you have this new ARV that you hiked up, you take it, you have this new loan, and now you can pay yourself back for not only buying the property, but also for the rehab costs. So that's why this is so cool, because you've now recovered all that money. And if the ARV is higher than you expected, then you get even more money. And in an amazing, ideal situation, you pull out all the money, you recoup all your funds, plus a little bit more. And generally, you can have this happen if you're very conservative with that ARV. It's not a good situation if that appraisal comes in under what you expected that ARV to be. So that just goes to show the amount of research, and you want to be very thorough and very confident in your ARV price. But now you have taken out money and you now have a loan on the property, you've recovered all your funds, you've paid yourself back, or if you did a private money loan or a hard money loan, this is when you would go and pay them back, and you now have a long, probably 30-year mortgage on the property, and you've just refinanced it and paid yourself back. It's really cool. And now the last step, and it will seem the simplest, but it's also probably the most important, and that is repeat. And now you can think you're at the very same stage you were in the beginning. You now have all this cash that you can go and do it again. And that's the coolest thing about BRRRR. You know, it isn't like if you took your money, 20% down payment in a specific property, and then you just kind of wait and have that grow your wealth. Although that can grow your wealth, BRRRR allows you to really speed up the process because in the end, after everything is done, you get your money back. And then you can see you can go do it again. Just that same process again. Recover your funds and go do it again and again. And that's really what gets that whole wealth machine working. You're getting more and more rental properties, and BRRRR really allows you to speed up that process. All right, so I went over that quick example in the beginning, then I went over each step of the BRRRR process. And now I kind of want to tie everything together through an example. I'm going to give a hypothetical example of a property and we kind of walk through this BRRRR process together. So let's do that. Suppose I'm in a particular neighborhood and I want to find an investment property. Now, I find a property for $40,000. So I find that property and I know it needs about $30,000 of rehab. And I know after the rehab, the property then will be worth $100,000. $100,000 is its ARV, and I know that because I've talked to real estate agents in the area, and I can kind of even look on Zillow and just get a general idea of how much stuff is selling for in that particular area. So I buy that property. This is the first part. B, I buy that property for $40,000, and in this example, I'm going to be paying cash, so $40,000. Now we move on to the first R, rehab. We're now going to rehab that property for $30,000. So I get a contractor, I get all the bids, and in the end it ends up costing me $35,000. You know, I expected 30 at first, but now it's 35. Well, that's okay, it happens. So I go and pay $35,000. All right, so let's look at what we have. I bought the property for $40,000 and I spent $35,000 on the rehab, and now it's worth $100,000. So I now have a $100,000 property that's all fixed up. So now I move on to the rent. I now want to rent out this property because now it is rent ready. So in this example, suppose I have a property manager. They'll handle most of that. They get it all rented out. And now after the rent, we move on to the refinance. I go to the bank that I use, or even a credit union or anyone like that, wherever I want to get this mortgage from. I can even get different offers from different people. They go and appraise the property. They'll send an appraiser. They'll say, yep, you're right, $100,000 is what the price of this property is right now. And then I talk to this bank and they're like, all right, we have an 80% LTV, loan to value, meaning I can take out 80% and get a loan for 80% of that property. So I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. So they now gave me $80,000 and I now have an $80,000 mortgage on this property. So I still have $20,000 worth of equity in the deal. Most banks will need you to have some amount of equity because they don't want to give you a loan completely. You know, they want you to have some skin in the game. So I have $20,000 in the property and I got out $80,000. This is what's cool. So remember, I bought the property for $40,000 and it took me $35,000 to remodel the whole thing, which is $75,000. But we just pulled out $80,000. So I technically got an extra $5,000 from this whole thing. So in the end, I ended up with right back where I was started. I started with $75,000 that I spent on rehab and buying the place, plus an extra nice little $5,000. So now I have $80,000. I pay myself back because I paid in cash. And then we move on to the last R, which is repeat. I now take that $80,000 and I do the same thing. I go look for another property, maybe one that's kind of in that same ballpark at $40,000, needing about $30,000 to fix up. And I can do that over and over again because I'm always going to get my money back through that refinance. And it's okay if something goes wrong because in this example, I explained how $5,000 or rehab was $5,000 more. But in the end, we still made $5,000 extra. So even when things go wrong, you can still do pretty well. And maybe the ARV comes out a whole lot lower. That's okay. Maybe I just have to have a little more equity in the deal, or maybe I have to take out and I don't get all my money back. That's okay, because you still put in probably less money than you would have had you done a 20% down deal or anything like that. So that's pretty cool, or a pretty cool thing about BRRRR is that even when things go wrong, you're still in a pretty good situation. So that's kind of an example of how BRRRR works. All right, so that is how BRRRR works, and this is an unbelievably powerful strategy to grow your wealth, and you can do it pretty quickly, and you can be very confident in it. You know, there is risk involved, but there isn't nearly as much risk as anything else that can grow your wealth that quickly. So it's a great way to invest in real estate, and after you do it for a little while, you can really start to see your wealth grow and grow and grow. And there's just so many benefits to doing this. You know, after you rehab, oftentimes you have new amenities. So you don't really have to worry about the roof going out because maybe you put on a new roof or anything like that. So there's a lot of little benefits here, and I could talk for a very long time, a laundry list of good benefits and why BRRRR is so powerful. But that isn't this video. This video is just a pretty good explanation of it. And if something doesn't make sense here, that's okay. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions at all. And hopefully either I will get back to you, I'll try to respond as fast as possible, or maybe if you can answer someone else's question in the comments as well, that's always a great thing. I always love it when multiple people get in on the conversation, and I don't know, I just really enjoy talking to you guys in the comments below. But that will wrap it up. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you now understand this strategy as a whole. But that will wrap it up. So that is the BRRRR investing model. I hope you have a good understanding of it, and that will wrap it up. And if you are interested in BRRRR investing or just real estate videos and stuff in general, please like this video. That lets me know that you want to see more videos like this, and I will make the videos that you guys want to see. So be sure to smash that like button, and if you haven't yet, I would love it if you would subscribe. When you do, you will find multiple videos here every single week, all about personal finance and real estate investing. So I'd love it if you would subscribe if you're interested in anything like that. So hello to my new subscribers. Hello to the subscribers that have been here for a while. It's always great to see you guys. But that will wrap it up. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, my name is Raab, and I'll see you soon. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. So I'm going to move to the corner of your screen here. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you are going to see my most recent video. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see a video that YouTube and I each think that you would like. And if you haven't yet, you can hit my face right here and subscribe. As always, my name is Raab, and I'll see you soon.